Hey guys, it's me again. Last night I made a video and I didn't feel right about it, so I'm gonna try again. Hitting more of the points that I want to in a shorter, faster time. So, as many people who know me know that I have recently become engaged, and that was something that I never thought would happen. I've dated several people in the past, and I just didn't ever get um, the connection and the support that I needed from the people that I dated. I'll be honest here, guys. I've even dated women. I was in a relationship with a woman for a year and a half, being my longest relationship at this point. But I am engaged to Mark now, and he is like literally the best thing that has ever happened to me. He was originally living with his dad and his dad's girlfriend when we first met, which was really nice because he lived about 5 minutes away from where I'm at. And we just hit it off right off the bat, you know. We met on Facebook dating, and we went on our first date and then hung out every day for the following 2 weeks for shorter amounts of time than we do now on our 2-3 days that we see each other a week. But I had met all of his family, and it was time for him to meet mine. We officially began dating like as a, what do you call that? In a committed relationship, April 6th, and we went and saw my family down in New Mexico for 7 days, which is a very short period of time to meet so many people. And those of you who don't know, I've got 4 siblings. I've got like 10 or 11 nieces and nephews at this point. Love them all to death, but they live in New Mexico, and currently Mark and I are living in Utah. We have plans to marry on Tuesday, February 22nd of 2022. And so that's going to be fun and an easy way to remember the anniversary. And believe you me, it's not him that has the problem with remembering the dates. It's me. I'll admit that. Well, we went down in June and we spent a couple of days in Albuquerque because that's where my brothers live, and then we went down and visited with my sisters. We briefly met up with Sadie, and we ended up, Angela's kids asked if Aunt Amy and Uncle Mark could have a sleepover, so on the last day that we were there, we canceled our hotel reservations, and he was in the guest room and I was on the couch. That was also the time that he figured out that I sleep better to noise, because it was 2 in the morning and he came out to use the restroom and he's like, the TV is blaring, how is she sleeping through this? But it's ridiculous, because when we're hanging out and I fall asleep when we watch TV and he turns the TV off, I wake up. But he seriously was just meshed and melded so well with my family. There was no hesitation. Anytime I couldn't find him, chances are he was playing with the kids instead of, hanging out with the grown-ups, which was totally cool to me. But anyways, we even went down to Carlsbad. I lived in New Mexico for 20 plus years and I had never been, so he took me to Carlsbad Caverns and it was so much fun. But on our return flight home, we actually ended up having a 7-hour layover. I didn't get to lay down in my bed till 4 in the morning on Sunday, and we were supposed to be here at 11:30 on Saturday night. So I was not in my right frame of mind on the following Sunday, whatever, June 29th, I think it was. And I woke up at like noon to a whole bunch of text messages from my neighbor down the way demanding that we pay him for watching Tank, because I didn't know that I could take him on a Southwest flight for no additional charge. And I live in an apartment complex that happens to house 12 mentally ill, including myself, people, and I was really frustrated because he knew as well as anybody else that nobody had money until the 1st or the 3rd, depending on what kind of benefits you get. And so he really laid into me, and I was like really frustrated. I ended up going to the store on Sunday because I had no food, and I knew Kendra and Brian and Mark wouldn't have food that I could eat because I have celiac disease. So I went to the store, and then I went over, and I had been trying to internally cope with the negativity from this guy, because like he was telling me, you know, you don't care about Tank, you don't love him, you should give him away, you're not a good dog owner, you don't take care of him, he's not your first and foremost, you're always on your phone when you're with him. And I'm like, whose place of it is yours? Is it of yours to tell me I don't take care of my dog? He gets dog food before I get food. I always make sure that his food is and water bowls are full. I always worry about him when he gets sick. He's constantly with me because he's my service dog. But anyways, I was trying to deal with this, and then I went over, and Brian and Kendra happened to be in the front, in the kitchen, which is, they enter and exit the house through the garage, so you enter the house right on the kitchen. And I asked them verbally for consent to ask for advice. I read them the text messages, I told them how I was feeling, and asked them what they would do, and they were like, pretty much just ignore him, and then when you get your money, give him the money and be done with it. And that's what I was planning to do originally. And so I was like, okay, cool, thanks. And then before I could walk away, Kendra started in on me about that I didn't care about Mark, that I didn't love him, that I didn't stand up to my family for him, that I wasn't, you know, a good person. And I was like, I was very level-headed. I didn't even raise my voice in round one, before I got overwhelmed and started crying in front of her, which I know that if you cry in front of the bully, it just gives them more power. I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to step away from this for right now, and I'm going to have to come back to this when I've calmed down. I went downstairs because their house is 3 levels. The basement is finished, and then the main floor, and then the upper floor has the bedrooms and stuff on it. But I went downstairs because Mark and I were going to watch one of our favorite shows that we've watched so far together. It's called Airplane Repo on Amazon Prime. Totally worth purchasing the seasons, by the way. I found it entertaining, highly entertaining. But before I could get all the way downstairs, Kendra raised her voice. Probably, you know, with autism, they give you, or at least with my nephew, they gave us a chart 1 through 5. 5 is screaming, and then 1 is being quiet as a church mouse. And I think Kendra was past a 5. I think she was at about a 25, and she screamed at the top of her lungs, "Yep, that's me, the fucking bitch. I'm a bitch." And she ran upstairs and slammed her door so hard that it made the whole house shake. At this point, I've lost control of my emotions. okay? I'm like physically sobbing, and like I don't understand what I did. I remember telling Mark, I don't understand what I did to get yelled at like that. I don't understand where this came from. I don't understand what happened. After a few moments, I realized that I hadn't had my morning medication yet. And so I went upstairs to the main floor, out to the garage, and Brian happened to be out there. I went out there to get a drink because that's where they keep them. I then went inside. Before I went inside, I asked Brian, do you have any idea where this came from? Do you know what happened to make her so angry at me? And he said, no, I don't, but when she calms down, I'll try and talk to her and see what happened. I didn't take this as, you go talk to her and then you come back and tell me. I was saying more like, I don't understand why she, like, literally attacked me and treated me this horrible way. And, I went back inside, took my medication, and before I had even sat down on the couch, at some point Kendra went from her bedroom outside, but I have no idea A, how, or B, when she did that. But I guess Brian caught up with her and asked her, you know, what happened, why did you act that way? And she took that as I was trying to, I would call it playing a game of telephone. You know, Brian, you go find out what made Kendra so mad at me, and then come tell me what she said. That wasn't my intention. My intention was, can somebody tell me why this lady is attacking me? But she took it as I was going to him and I wanted the answer for it to come back from him. I just wanted her to calm down enough that she would be able to talk to me in a civilized manner. It's not that hard, you know. She's 54, I'm 29. Okay? I don't understand why it's so hard for her. It was so hard for her. But before I could even sit down on the couch downstairs, she comes in once again, slams the kitchen, you know, the garage kitchen door, so hard that it shakes the house. And then she's up here, and I'm down here, and she starts screaming at me. She's not making eye contact. She's not even on the same level. I can't even see her when she starts yelling at me the second time. She told me that I was disrespectful, supposedly because I walked away and said I can't deal with this right now. That was being disrespectful. She told me that I needed to get my act together, basically, but you know, I've been working on that for going on 2 years. It's not happening overnight. I can't correct 29 or 28 years worth of mistakes, bad habits, mental health issues. It's not going to change overnight. This is a lifetime progression. You know, it's not something that I particularly care to deal with, but guess what? In heaven I said, I'll take this because I know I can handle it. It'll be fine. And here I am, struggling regularly. But she just started attacking me and saying all these false things to me. And I told her, at this point I had raised my voice and I said, you know, normal people would know that they don't start a conflict of this magnitude when you're not on the same level with each other. You're not making eye contact. I don't remember what she said to that, but her voice continued to escalate. And unfortunately, due to the sleep pattern disruption, already having the argument with my neighbor, it was just, I was a ticking time bomb and that was it. You know, again, she came in with the, you don't care about Mark, you need to stand up to people more, you need to, it just seems like she just wants me to be an entirely different person than I am, and that my fiance loves and supports me. in every single endeavor that I'm currently going through. Okay, it hasn't been easy to look him in the eye and say, I've been with a girl for over a year. It didn't matter to him. When I said, Mark, I hear voices in my head, I get suicidal a lot. There are days that I don't really want to get up, even. I mean, how many people do you know that would say, despite just those 3 things alone, I still love you. I still want to try and pursue a relationship with you. I don't think that it's fair that people judge based on things that are beyond the other person's control. I said, Mark, I don't have any idea or room for an idea of having a relationship with my father. See, I've had my voices since I was 4. And I'm pretty sure that's when the sexual abuse started from my dad, because one time that I was in the hospital, the doctor said that usually when the voices come from outside of your head, so like in the corners or out of the heating element vents, or wherever they're outside of your head, that is more characteristically common for schizophrenia. Like actual full-blown schizophrenia. When they're internal, that's typically a sign that the voices are due to trauma. I know that my dad has admitted to at least 2 times of involving me in sexual acts. I have witnesses and proof that there was a 3rd time after I was 8. And I was just going through pictures earlier because I'm making a slideshow of all of Mark's little kid pictures and my little kid pictures for our wedding. And as I've been going through them, I'm like, I kind of remember that. I sort of remember that. I wonder when that happened. All of these things, like these memories, these pictures of me, 90% of them, I have no idea. And I'm not talking just the little infant ones. I'm talking toddler through, 5th grade. There are pieces and parts that I remember. It wasn't just sexual abuse with my dad. There's physical abuse. And that started really young. My mom said there was an incident before I was even 2. I remember in elementary school, he made a paddle out of wood, drilled holes in it, and then he would wet it before he would smack our bare butts with it. I know that there were times that I was beat with the belt. And there was also socioeconomical abuse. My father's a compulsive gambler, and I know for a fact from like 2000 to 2010, the bishop paid our rent and utilities and food orders every 2 weeks because all of my dad's money that he was earning with his own business was going to the casino. And then when he would come home at 2 or 3 in the morning and us kids would get up at 6, if we were too loud and we woke him up, we would get beaten because we didn't appreciate how hard he was working. My dad's also an alcoholic. He used to hide liquor and beer in the toilet tank of the master bathroom because he didn't want the kids to find it. My dad actually went to prison for sexual abuse of a minor. He also went to prison for armed robbery. Those 2 things he didn't tell my mom till way after a long time they were married. So you see, these reasons, among others, are why I don't have a relationship with my dad. And I call him a derogatory term, or a derogative term. I call him my sperm donor because I don't want any emotions attached to that. There is nothing left for me to give. He didn't just do it to me either. I won't tell what happened because that's not my story to tell. But many of my little cousins got abused, in addition to other people in my immediate sibling group. My sperm donor, he is no man. He is evil. And I don't say that about many people. So I don't have a relationship with my dad. Well, a couple of weeks of, we had this big fight with Kendra and Brian, and so I told you all of that in lieu of understanding that I've had so much to work on, and I feel like in the last 2 years I've finally accepted the fact that I need to work on it and move on. So I wasn't like, when Kendra told me that I didn't stand up to my family, or I wasn't assertive, or there were so many things that were said that I can't remember because I was so pissed off. And that always happens to me when I get super pissed off. Most of it is forgotten or not inputted into my brain. I do remember telling her that if she wanted to talk about this, she needed to get her ass down to where I was and talk to me woman to woman, face to face. And she didn't really appreciate that, at which point Mark tried to separate and end the argument, and she screamed at the top of her lungs, "This doesn't concern you, don't get involved." And I was like, wait a minute, isn't that the whole reason we're like arguing or whatever? Because like you think that I don't care about Mark and that I didn't stand up to my family for and in behalf of him. After that happened, I turned around to Mark and I said, "I'm leaving. You can either come with me or not, but you have to come in your own car because I don't want to come back here." I picked up my groceries, and as I was walking out of the garage, I phoned my mom. And I could barely talk. I was crying and so upset. Because this woman, I appeared to care about Mark and appeared to want to like be involved in our lives, but not really super involved, because so anyways, we left and I called my mom and I was literally couldn't even talk. She knew that I was upset because I kept crying, and she could hear me like physically. It was bad. It was like on the verge of a panic attack, and I managed to make it home. I did get home safely, no accidents, no reckless behavior on that front. And I texted the guy down the hall and I said, "My mom's gonna send me money when I have it. Give me your Venmo tag and I'll take care of that." And then I proceeded to sit on my kitchen floor and have one of my biggest panic attacks I've ever had. Why? Because I thought, based on the actions of Kendra, that Mark was gonna then in turn break up with me. And I felt like I handled round one pretty well. Pretty like, hey, I'm getting up there on my anger and having my fire lit under my ass. So let me step away and take a minute to calm down, and then I'll revisit this. And I thought that I hadn't done good enough at that, I guess. I don't know. But for whatever reason, I felt like Mark would leave me, he was extremely conflicted about it. He's not a very emotion showing guy. He does have emotions, he just doesn't verbalize and or external factors show his frustration. But anyways, he obviously didn't leave me. I ended up taking an extra anxiety pill, which I used to take over 200 milligrams of my anxiety medicine, but I cut back the middle of the day doses, and now when I take it, holy crap, I just sleep. So we were sitting on the love seat, and I was just like sitting up sleeping, and he turned the TV off and scrolled through Facebook till I woke up again. And, I remember, feeling calm enough that he could leave towards the very end of that day. But what was more interesting to me was that he was so conflicted and so hurt because Kendra did this to me. My baby, he doesn't usually wake up till like exactly enough time for him to get ready for whatever he has to do that day. And I remember I was headed to work after this incident happened, and I at the time worked for Fizz, and I always worked the 7:15 to 11:30 shift. So I was actually out getting gas, and my phone made this sound that I had received a text message, and when I got back in the car, I was like, what the crap? It's 6:48 in the morning. What are you doing awake? He was so upset by this whole thing that he barely slept. I think that night he got 4 hours of sleep. When on average, before this occurred, he was having on average 8 hours of sleep. So that was telling to me that he was internally upset, whether he was willing to verbalize that or not. And we ended up this fight happened on a Sunday, and that Friday we went down to his dad's work, and his dad was like, I'm gonna be Switzerland in this matter. I wasn't present when it happened or occurred, this, that, and the other. And Mark was like, that's fine, but I'm still moving out. And so we had planned a trip with them and his sister, and in July, and whenever that trip occurred, we moved Mark out of his room at his dad's house. He's with his mom right now. He lives up in the loft, and it works. Everybody's safe. He says it. He didn't realize how toxic it was living with Kendra and Brian, because Kendra has fights of this magnitude with Brian on an almost daily basis. So that was always fun when they were having one of those days when we were over there. Let's see. After that, they asked Kendra text on that Friday following the argument. We texted Kendra and asked if we could have a meeting to discuss what happened, and she said, and I quote, "I don't think that's a good idea." And that's all we got in that text message. And Mark has those text messages, just in case anyone wanted to know. So then when the trip came around, they were like, let's just call a truce and everybody come to the cabin and be fine. And to me, a truce isn't an I'm sorry. Did the two parties in World War II, or any war for that matter, say, hey, let's call it a truce, and by the way, I'm sorry? No, it was like, I don't particularly hate you, but I don't particularly like you, and the other side would say the same thing, and it was over. That is not the same thing as an I'm sorry. But anyways, we had plans that week. We moved Mark out. We went to see where we're gonna do our venue. We picked our venue that day. We went ring shopping that day. You know, there was a lot of stuff that we did over that weekend that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. So we didn't end up going. And then we just reached out like a week or maybe 2 ago at this point to Sam, Mark's sister, and said, hey, do you think there's any way you could reach out and see if they would even entertain the idea of having a meeting with us to talk about this. And a common thing that I hear from before this argument happened and after since is everything was fine till you came along. I get that from Kendra, I get that from Brian, I get that from Sam. Everything was fine until Amy came along. Well, yeah, because Amy came along and was like, yo, you're an adult. You don't have to do everything that they say, when they say, and how they say it to do it. They didn't let Mark independently think. You know, he said a couple of days ago in the car, he was like, if I hadn't been so influenced by Kendra and Brian, I would have probably put a ring on your finger a lot sooner. They told him things like, don't marry her because she's not good with money. Don't marry her because she could ruin your credit. Don't marry her because of this. Don't marry her because of that. And I didn't know any of that until this fight happened. I also found out that Kendra didn't even particularly want a relationship with me. She didn't want to do things with me. She would say she wanted to do things with me, and then when it was time to do the thing, mysteriously, she would fall off the face of the earth every single time. And I would say I tried at least 5 different times to have just a hangout session and do stuff or stand around and talk. I don't care. You know, I just wanted to get to know her because she was important to Mark. But I found out after the fact that they were seriously influencing him in a negative manner. They weren't supportive of his first kiss. That was his first kiss ever, and they weren't supportive of that. They kept telling him that we were moving too fast. And in our culture and as members of the church, we typically do. When we start dating, if it's the right person, you know, I've had some of my friends that have gotten married in 6 weeks after to the day of even knowing of each other. And we didn't get engaged till my birthday, so we met each other in March. We officially started dating in April. My birthday's was the last Sunday of July this year. Anyways, you know, we've been going at a pretty normal rate, even a slow rate for members of the church. But they were just negatively influencing him, giving him all these reasons why he shouldn't even date me, let alone get married. And so once I got him out of that situation and I taught him how to think for himself, we realized as a couple, and we prayed about it, that it was time to start working on getting married. And since we've had this argument, we haven't really had that, well, I haven't had contact with Kendra or Brian, and a few times Brian has called up Mark and said, you know, this is all Amy's fault, she needs to apologize for 10 different things, and we're like, wait a minute, why does Amy have to, I've already apologized twice, by the way, both of which weren't good enough. They wanted a literal itemized apology, and sorry, so they really wanted an itemized apology, and they wanted an apology for some things that I didn't really do. You know, I didn't lie, I didn't do anything like that. And that's part of what they wanted an apology for, was for me lying. And so anyways, long story made even longer, I decided that it was time to reach out to Kendra and Brian one final time before the wedding, before we made our final decision on whether or not Kendra and Brian could come, to see if we could have a meeting and to see if they would meet us in the middle and apologize for the things that they did. I mentioned that the main fighting happened between Kendra and I, but also in between round one and round two of the Kendra battle, Brian came in and I was visibly upset and mentioned that the last time we had used the kitchen, we didn't clean it up appropriately, and I asked this 61-year-old man, what exactly was it that I didn't clean up well enough for you? I said, my dad's a janitor. He owned his own business for 20 plus years. I know how to clean, and I know how to clean on a professional scale. But he didn't have an answer for that response. He said, well, I don't know, but you guys didn't clean it up good enough. In my opinion, a person should be able to tell that I'm clearly already upset. You don't need to add more fuel to the fire. Although I think he was trying to give Mark more reasons, I guess, why not to date me, because I can't clean, apparently. But the funny thing about that is that when Mark comes over to my house, he says it's not that bad. I suffer with the many mental health disorders, and so there are times where it's not clean, where every single freaking dish in my whole kitchen is dirty. One time recently, I did my dishes for the first time when I realized that I was going to have to eat my oatmeal with a fork. Luckily, it was chunky oatmeal, very thick, and I could. And then after that, I said, okay, self, you have got to get these dishes done. You're worth more than this. So we reached out to Kendra, and then it started causing me great anxiety. Huge anxiety and anger, because I thought I was past feeling angry and hurt and anxiety over the situation. And then I reached out, and it turns out that I am still very angry and I'm still very hurt. They said that calling the truce was their form of an apology. When I talked to Kendra last Saturday, 2 weeks ago Saturday, because Sam reached out and told her to call me, and then I was like, she don't have my number, and then I ended up giving it to her, and Kendra also wanted to hash it out over the phone without Mark or Brian present. And I tactfully and not so tastefully shut her down every time she wanted to hash it out. I was like, so I guess we'll call you when I'll text you or call you when I know where and when Mark wants to meet. And then I did text her back because the phone connection was horrible that day. And it was very echoey, so I just texted her and I said, Mark says a Sunday, Wednesday, or Friday would work, but we would prefer Sunday, and he gave us these two places that we could pick from. And Kendra said that she would call or text when it was convenient for them. And I don't remember if I mentioned in the video I made yesterday, because I'm squishing it all together, but if the roles were reversed and this issue had been with my mom and her boyfriend, then I'm sure that if any one of my siblings reached out to my mom and her boyfriend, that we would at least have an appointment set to meet the four of us and see if we could come up with a solution so that everybody's feelings that were hurt could begin to heal and mend the same day or the next day. And I reached out, like I said, almost 3 Wednesdays ago now, to Sam. And so I feel hurt about that too, because here I am trying to rectify and repair the relationship, and they're like, nah, when we have time we'll get around to that. And that makes me feel like they really do not value me as a person or even as a human. Not even somebody that they know, just a human being. Kendra is constantly preaching this is not the way that you treat people. Doesn't matter what their past is. This is not how you treat people. And then she turns around and treats Mark and I this way. And it's very frustrating and it's very overwhelming. In the last 2 weeks since I reached out to her, initially to Sam, and Sam reached out to her dad, and then their dad never got back to her, so she called Kendra directly. In those 2 weeks, I have been having a lot of ups and downs, a lot of depression, mostly depression, because they didn't even really want a relationship with me, is what I've come to the conclusion. Nor did they really want Mark to have a relationship with me. And so it's very hurtful. My family, we spent a week with 7 days. And a while back when Mark and I were talking, he said he felt more love and acceptance from my family already in those 7 days than he has felt from his dad or Kendra. I relayed that to my mom, by the way, and she said that was terribly sad, because she pointed out also that they only got to be around him for a short amount of time. So, lots of hurt, lots of anger around this. I have been trying to be busy so that the depression and the anxiety doesn't creep in. I've been writing letters, I've been writing in my journal, gratitude jar, doing a couple of projects for Christmas. Today I finished all 12 of my centerpieces, and by the time I got the last one done, I didn't do all 12 today, I did 5, and by the time I got the 5th one done, I was so done, and do not want to do another super crafty thing like that for at least a few days, if not a couple of weeks. But it's still, it's like having an evil best friend. Along comes the stupid depression and the stupid anxiety, and sometimes along with those, I have suicidal or self-harm ideation, and then there's days that I don't sleep, there's days that I sleep all day. I wasn't able to do Amazon Flex this week because if I did, I would make over my income limit for Social Security disability, and so I haven't even been going out and doing that. But I'm going to try to keep my commitment to myself and to Mark and go to the gym tomorrow. In addition, we're gonna get some vitamins. I've been waiting around for my sister to get to me about a tincture, a mixture of herbs and what have yous that she uses for her depression and anxiety, to see if that coupled with my medication wouldn't kick it. But I also think I have seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, which means that during the winter months it's harder for me to function. It's been more days depressed than not. And so it's just been a whole gamut of things going on, and the things that I'm feeling, I mean, I'm at this point, I'm like, I don't even know what to do. So, anyways, those are my thoughts and my feelings about this situation, and I'm going to, right after I end this video and start editing it, I'm going to put up my pieces of poetry. Okay, thanks for listening.